they just leave out that part where like you guys committed a genocide in 4K and forced us to pay for it. Like, you don't think that had a little bit to do with this?
You can't figure out the Epstein thing, but we've got like literally an Amber Alert. The feds are like able to answer quick. Like, I'm sorry, this is a joke. This is not what I voted for, and you're not going to struggle sashing me into.
What we want is not bombing Iran and threatening to overthrow Venezuela.
We didn't want war. Trump joined the Never Trump movement. That's what's happening right now, and now they're trying to tell us to join it. I'm good. I've always been against the Never Trumpers, and I'm going to stay that way even if Trump has joined them.
The Israel First Zionists are in the midst of a downfall. They're simply losing their grip and stranglehold over the American mindset. That hasn't played out in the political realm yet, but it certainly is in the culture. And Dave Smith and Candace Owens talk about that here, including Trump's decision to join with this Never Trumper faction to back Israel to the teeth, get into new wars, fund a genocide, what have you, and what that says about American politics as Israel's losing this information war with Americans themselves. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
You know, I thought it was so funny listening to Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham at this Genocide Fest 2025, where they're like, you know, like if you were to hear them talk about it, it's like, dude, I guess everybody just got possessed by Israel hatred over the last couple of years, and nothing else was going on in the news with Israel, Candace. It's just that, I don't know, so everybody just kind of, I guess Qatar must have sent a lot of money around, and then everybody it was just all, you know, all that's what happened, is that like all these people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and all the people who have been household names now for many, many years, who you know is very successful at the top of the conservative, most popular like commentators, they all just sold out their soul for Qatari money, and just and their whole audience is possessed by it too, and nothing. And then they just leave out that part where like you guys committed a genocide in 4K and forced us to pay for it. Like, you don't think that had a little bit to do with this? You don't think that had something to do with where we're at today? And this like, you know, so one of the things, this is what I was getting at before, because Charlie was a movement guy. Charlie was a big tent guy. Charlie was a guy who wanted to find a way for us to not lose to like the crazy progressive leftists. And you've heard this brought up a lot by Mark Levin and by Ben Shapiro and people like that over this last week. You know, we just had an election. The Democrats had a good night. You go, look, there's this infighting on the right. And so if we keep doing this, we're going to end up losing, and AOC is going to be president or something like that. Now,
it's like, yeah, I'm sure they would like us not to talk about Israel. We lost to the Democrats because we didn't shove the Israel issue under the rug more. That's so absurd. This is unavoidable. It is a key issue of our time. In fact, it might be the key issue in America in general, because it has so many spillover effects into our domestic policy, rewriting hate speech laws, the debt that we get into, funding this rogue regime, the inflation it causes to do that, even when America is $38 trillion in debt. And Dave's exactly right. You know, the Zionists want us to believe that we're under this mass psychosis, that, you know, all the critics of Israel somehow became so 2 years ago because of witchcraft or something like that. No, you wanted to double down on Israel's atrocities and conflate the state of Israel with Judaism itself, saying, hey, there's no effective difference. But when you do that and keep backing these atrocities, the Americans just turned away from you. That's what happened.
Of course, they just take it as a given that, like, I guess we're just supposed to shut up and they get their way. Is, you know, like, why is that the way it works? But at a certain point, I actually think in a sense, they're right about that one argument. And Charlie was right to like be concerned about this. But here's the thing, right? And you being number one, and you and Tucker are the biggest two. You're the biggest two conservative people in the news. And like, then as Charlie noted, as Megyn Kelly's noted, nobody under 30 supports Israel anymore. Barely anyone under 40 supports Israel anymore. It is essentially, my point is that you're right. If we fracture up this coalition, we'll end up losing to the Democrats. But the only way to overcome that and win is to obviously go with the wind. It's like it's like saying in 2016, hey, there's a big divide between Donald Trump and the entire GOP establishment on immigration. They want open borders, and he wants to build a wall. And it's like, yes, but you've got him and 100% of the base against you. So the only option here is to go with his immigration policy, and then you could win the election. And
yeah, it's so clear that this is such a losing issue, even if it were your prerogative to win. So ignoring it isn't actually helpful. It's actually getting on the right side of this issue when it matters most, as it has in the last 2 years. So if your calculus is just to help a particular political party, which I have no care for, you'd think you'd want to embrace the truth on this and where Americans are going on this, rather than the tired old neocon paradigm of just separate everyone into left-right categories, try to maintain that, rather than acknowledging this single-issue coalition that is overtaking that old game. That's a moment that they're not prepared for because you have distance on the left and the right uniting on this issue, and I think that's a good thing. That's the best of things, in fact.
I do think this all comes down to the war party and to Israel, which are kind of, one and the same in this country. And it's like, JD Vance, you can embrace that and lose, or you can come over here with the people and have a real shot of winning. What do you want to do?
And look, we have the Republican Party, we have a Democrat Party, and then we have the Knesset Party, and they've infiltrated both of the parties, actually. And what's happening right now is left and right. People are saying no to that. The reasons might be different, but it's a populist movement one way or the other. Right. And it's hilarious to me that they think, after me watching Charlie Kirk get assassinated, them spitting in our face and telling us that it's raining about everything that happened here, the viciousness that they themselves directed toward me in the aftermath. I mean, if people say, like, they tried to say that I didn't even know Charlie. I mean, it was they were so intent on making sure that not one drop of Candace being anti-Israel was a part of his legacy, that they just lied. They lied in a way that, for the grief that I was going through, like, I'm not a crier. I mean, it was a lot. I couldn't.
Yeah, and this is true. That's exactly what they tried to do. You had the PBD podcast having someone that proclaimed that they were on the board of Turning Point USA, which they were not on the board of Turning Point USA, saying that on his podcast that, hey, Charlie and her broke ties long ago, when she actually spoke at his event last year, and they maintained a close relationship to the end, texting back and forth. This is so easily disproven. What do these people gain over these lies? Do they expect, of all people, that Candace Owens is not going to bring receipts? That's pretty much her middle name. It's Candace Receipts Owens. That was never going to be possible. It's absurd.
Eat, I couldn't sleep. It was a lot for me to go through. And I look back and I'm like, wow, the nastiness of them doing this. And then, like, a couple of weeks later being like, and now we demand you tell your audience to go vote for who we want them to vote for.
Yeah.
F you. F you. I am not doing anything. Okay, here's the way it works, and here's how common sense is. Okay, you tell me I can do this job. I can build your house. I can do this. I hire you. Okay, I get behind it. I say, okay, I hire you. Go do that job. You then don't do it. You look at me and you say, Epstein who? Okay, like, yeah, right. You're at the top of the FBI and you say, oh, these are the real messages. You're blocking people, as Kash Patel is, from looking into Tulsi's team and Joe Kent. You saw this playing out in the news. They won't even let them look into whether or not foreign people could have been involved in this. And then you're like, and now go get out more people to vote so that we stay in power. No, buddy. Okay, in your famous words, you're fired, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. And so I don't know what's around the corner, but I do know that my platform is not yours. Okay. My platform belongs to the truth, left and right. Okay. And so it was just incredible to me. They were like, and not even that, they were like, get out people and tell them to vote against Mamdani and to, like, get behind Israel. Okay, if you want to do that, that's your thing. But I'm telling you, I'm not doing anything, because for me, political life stopped when Charlie Kirk was murdered, and you wanted me to move on. I'm not moving on from it. Yeah. By the way, it wasn't because of Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson sitting down that MAGA got splintered. It got splintered when you said Epstein who. That's it. Literally, for me.
Exactly. This is so correct. It's so great to hear this as a libertarian, someone that's saying, owning the libs isn't enough. When you make all these promises to bring transparency and end the wars and prioritize the needs and desires of Americans over this foreign regime, and you don't do it, that's akin to promising to build someone a house and not doing it, and Candace isn't on board. It's so awesome to hear this, because this is the new game that we have to operate under. This is the new politics in America, where we're not just going to go along with the flow because, oh, Kamala Harris would have been so much worse. That's not even that clear to me anymore. It would have been indistinguishable based upon what we've seen in many ways. Maybe there would be some modifications here and there, but man, do we ever have status quo policy in almost every regard, regardless of who we elect. That's the uniparty. Trump was establishment. He was a fraud. He promised that he wasn't, and he didn't uphold his best promises. And I'm so glad to hear Candace saying that, not towing the line toward the Republican establishment under Trump. It's great. That's exactly what we need. Hold these people accountable, even if you're the number 1 or number 2 biggest conservative influencer in the U.S. Same thing when it comes to the left. I wish that was true too.
On my show, when I said, okay, what is this? Did the Loch Ness swamp monster come up and swallow the MAGA party? Actually, who is the Loch Ness monster? I think it's Israel. Okay. I think it's Israel, actually.
Such a good point.
And if Trump suddenly joined the Never Trump party, which he did, right? Trump joined the Never Trump movement. That's what's happening right now. And now they're trying to tell us to join it. I'm good. I've always been against the Never Trumpers, and I'm going to stay that way, even if Trump has joined them.
Man, that is so perfectly said. This is so true, because Trump is more won over by neocon Zionists like Lindsey Graham and Randy Fine than, America First real patriots like Thomas Massie that dare to say, hey, you preach this America First message, and it's clearly that we're beholden to Israel, that our sovereignty has been robbed, that we're not even autonomous. It seems like this tiny country the size of New Jersey has more control or influence over our political system than us to them, despite giving them $25 billion since October 7th. Enough is enough. That is what happened. These people were essentially all Never Trumpers. That was what Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin were in 2016. And guess who stood with Trump throughout the whole Russiagate fiasco? People like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. Well, guess who gets dragged through the dirt? Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. Trump never rewards loyalty, true loyalty at least, because he always has to side with the Israel lobby and the military-industrial complex, and that's why he's out there campaigning for Lindsey Graham right now and throwing as much support toward Thomas Massie's primary challenger as he can.
Yeah, well, that's such an important point. And so but I just real quick before I get to that, I just do want to say, and I made this point last night. I was on my buddy Clint Russell's podcast, Liberty Lockdown. Oh, Clint Russell, by the way, criminally underrated. He's great. So it was me, him, and Ian Carroll, and we did.
Yeah, it was trending. You guys were trending.
Yeah.
Props to Clint Russell, Liberty Lockdown. He's awesome. Couldn't agree more. Follow his podcast.
Well, it was a great show. I think I bowled over everyone. I talked too much on the show. I apologized for it afterward, and I was like, I bet I'm going to get shit in the comments for this, and I did today. So sorry about that, guys. It was late. I'd had a couple whiskeys. I was ranting a bit, but it was a great show, and you should go subscribe to Clint Russell's channel if you get a chance. But I said this to them on that show, and I wanted to just make sure I say this again while you're on my show. That look, I don't know everything about everyone here, but one thing I do know is over this last year, I mean, me and you have become friends over the last couple years. Me and Charlie became friends over this last year from hanging out with both of you. And I remember talking to you because, we'd all talk about all this stuff. And I remember talking to you about Charlie years ago when we were hanging out. And you were just had nothing. You were like, Charlie's the greatest guy. Just had nothing but like, I love him to death. He's the greatest guy ever. And I talked to Charlie about you briefly when we were down at the Student Action Summit, whatever the big event where me and Tucker and Megan were. And literally just all he had to say was how much he adored and loved you. Like, so the idea of people going like, there was this distance that had been growing between, like, okay, actually, I know both of them. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
And it makes it so ironic, too, because how easily disproven are those sentiments just from like basic texts and stuff that could be released? I mean, it just seems so absurd that this was the line a lot of the Zionists went with. They went with a lot of other lies, too, like, Israel went down, supporting Zionism in Israel to the end. But we know because of Candace Owens that 48 hours before his death, he revealed that he has, quote, no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. That's why they're so mad at Candace Owens. It's not that she lost her mind. It's because they look like fools. She's made them to look like fools because they lied about both that and their relationship. So what else are they hiding? That's what Candace Owens is asking, and that's why so many people are, appealing to that kind of content. They're drawn to it because there is something here beneath the surface that they're clearly hiding. Many things, in fact, as it turns out.
That's just a fact. And I genuinely challenge anybody in Charlie's inner circle, tell me the wrong. Even, I swear, even Josh Hammer wouldn't have the goddamn balls. Maybe he would, but he's lying. So that's one thing. But then on this other thing, it's very interesting. And, that you're absolutely right that it really was the Epstein thing. I said this at the time, too, that people do not understand how profound what he's done here is to, and it may not even show up in a poll. His numbers did go down after that, but I'm not sure the polls can, because a lot of people who support Donald Trump, they supported him, they voted for him. If you asked them, they'd probably still say, do you support Donald Trump? Yeah, I'm a Trump guy. I'm not a Kamala Harris Democrat or something. But the energy and the loyalty and the enthusiasm were just tremendously degraded by him. It's the whole political raison d'etre of Donald Trump was to drain the swamp. And this is the swampiest of the swamp, a pedophile ring connected to government and foreign intelligence assets. Like, come on. Yeah, I'm loyal to God. I'm loyal to my wife. I'm loyal to my friends. I'm not loyal to an administration. No. And to your point, it's like, this is not, and JD Vance or whoever it is not going to have that type of loyalty from a lot of us either. Like, you got to deliver on what we want. Like, right. and what we.
That's exactly right. It's not going to change. We are the new independent media now. You're not just going to get people towing the line for your prospective favored side of this duopoly. It's just not going to happen anymore. And that's the standards that the independent media should hold ourselves to. Don't be stooges. Don't just be, stuffed shirts for one of two parties. Americans have had enough about that.
What we want is not bombing Iran and threatening to overthrow Venezuela.
We didn't want war, and we were totally fine. Like the pro-Israel, he's always been pro-Israel, but it wasn't a relevant topic in the way that it is today. Like, are you going to stand up when Bibi Netanyahu says that he immediately wants your bombers to go take out, and like you just go do it, and you were going to do more if Charlie Kirk didn't stop it? You were actually going to do more. That seems pretty corrupt to us. Like the way that Bibi Netanyahu is just on camera being like, we're going to take over. I need this deal to go through with TikTok. And you're not saying anything. You were supposed to be the free speech enthusiast, and you're going after college kids. You got Pam Bondi, who's like blanking us on Jeffrey Epstein, but responding to like a kid that gets shoved by a girl on a college campus. He's wearing an IDF. So he's basically like wearing an IDF shirt, asking for it. And a girl gives him a little shove, and it requires Randy Fine and Pam Bondi to respond within minutes. You can't figure out the Epstein thing, but we've got like literally an Amber Alert. The feds are like able to answer quick. Like, I'm sorry, this is a joke.
This is a joke. That's the perfect example of where the FBI's priorities are too. When Kash Patel came in, so many people applauded that, saying, hey, have you seen him in this interview? He's saying, I'd tear down the FBI Hoover building and replace it to a museum to the deep state. That was like, yeah. And I admit that rhetoric's awesome. I'd love to see that. We're still waiting for that. But he completely proved to be a fraud as well. The Epstein files, cover up, nothing to see there. Epstein committed suicide. He and Dan Bongino sat there as if they were being held hostage, gulps in their throat going, I've seen the file and there's nothing to see there. It just is so pathetic. We're not going to accept it. We're not going to accept this line that it was a Democratic hoax when the Democrats didn't even use this as their primary weapon against Trump. Not a weapon at all. They used Russiagate for 2 to 3 years. So don't be giving us this. It's duplicity. It's not bringing transparency, and the FBI can't be reformed. It must be abolished.
This is not what I voted for, and you're not going to struggle sashimi into they're like using the ghost of Charlie Kirk. This is what Charlie would want. This is what Charlie would want. It's like, was I born yesterday? I don't know. But all I know is that I don't care what happens. You're going to have to work for our vote. When we elect you, we're electing you for a certain job. You don't deliver on that job. Joke's on you. And I think right now the Trump family is feeling that. You see that they are, I think, probably now in retrospect realizing how significant Charlie Kirk was, because he was damning that, right? Because everyone, even if you disagreed with him, people would play his clips. There was a level of respect that people had for Charlie Kirk because they sensed his authenticity. He was.
Yeah, that's true. That's true for a lot of people. Even those that didn't like Charlie Kirk, people like Gavin Newsom even admitted that about him. That's Gavin Newsom, right? You know, a lot of people have said that about Charlie Kirk. I actually think the only pushback I'm going to give Candace here is when she says, you know, she makes it seem like Charlie Kirk's the only one that caused Trump not to go full regime change war in Iran. I don't believe that. I think it was the combination of people like Charlie Kirk pushing against that, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens obviously didn't want it. It was like the top guys on their side all clamoring, you can't do a regime change in Iran. And I don't love all those guys. I don't think they're all perfect on foreign policy, but at least those voices didn't want to go full bore the way Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and all the diehard Zionists wanted to regime change that country as they've always wanted since 1996 in the clean break strategy that they clamor propaganda for, you know, trying to propagandize Americans. Hey, they're seconds, weeks, days, milliseconds, negative weeks away from acquiring a nuke. They've done that since I was a young man. They'll still do that. They're doing it again. Netanyahu actually did that when talking to Ben Shapiro at the beginning of October as well. So yeah, Candace is exactly right here.
Authentic, and you would sense that he would get stressed when he was being pressed not to be authentic, and that's now removed. And all we have are these puppets. And I'm including Trump amongst this. He has let his base down, and stop blaming Nick Fuentes. Okay. I'm not a Nick Fuentes fan. Why can't Nick Fuentes have a platform? Why can't he have a conversation? Why can't he talk to Dave Smith and Tucker? The free market works like this, by the way. Okay. If his ideas suck, then Nick Fuentes will be beat in the free markets. I don't need Nick Fuentes censored. I need you to actually deliver on your promises so that Nick Fuentes he wouldn't have a platform unless you guys were lying about something, right? Like, you're lying about something where people feel like they're not getting the truth from this person, and they're going and they're listening to more of Nick Fuentes. They sense that you're a liar. And so stop talking to me about this is Nick Fuentes' the grapers, you know, the anonymous frogs in the internet. This is their fault. No, this is your fault for not delivering on your promises. And one of those big promises was to protect speech. Okay. And we see what you're doing, redefining anti-Semitism on college campuses. Get out of my face.
Right on, man. Preach. This is Candace at her very best, most fiery. What I love about her, she's absolutely right here. They built Fuentes into what he is. That's the Zionists by the way that they've reacted to him. Indistinguishable from the liberal wokesters that tried to counter Ben Shapiro and scream bigotry toward him because he wanted to actually tackle the ideas. But here he doesn't want to tackle the ideas. He doesn't even want to debate his top subject of expertise, supposedly, the Israel issue, with anyone of prominence whatsoever, including Dave Smith, including Nick Fuentes, including Norman Finkelstein, including Jeff Sachs. He won't do that, even though he told Rogan he would. But why would he now? The arguments aren't on his side. So he's just a moral coward beyond being wrong on the Israel issue. And Candace is right. Trump hasn't delivered. In this new age, we're working under a political system in which if you don't deliver, you're going to suffer for it. I think that Trump is seeing that, especially from Epstein, especially from Iran, especially for these transparency issues and favoring Israel, and Doge turned out to be a complete scam. It wasn't going to save $2 trillion. Are you kidding? That led to a schism with Musk and Trump, too. They seem to have somewhat patched it up at Kirk's funeral, but it didn't seem like any of the Republicans in Congress were serious about that outside of, again, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie and Rand Paul. What do you know? The same three heroes on that side that are standing against this all being dragged through the dirt because of it, in favor, on Trump's behalf, of Lindsey Graham and Randy Fine, those who he's endorsed and those who he's personally campaigning for. You know, the neocon stooges that he drug before the campaign, he used that as an election vehicle, not as a real prognostication of where his policy would be. So yeah, this is how they've lost the stranglehold on the American people. Now, it hasn't panned out into American politics yet. It might not. I think 10 years is a reasonable time frame for which this door might completely shut. Maybe that's optimistic, maybe it's not. But what I do know is there was one day in which you're supposed to say Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. And then there was that debate. And then the day after that, even the mainstream media publications were like, we can't go with this facade anymore. This is absolutely absurd. You have to replace Biden. So things happen quickly and things happen gradually. We'll see what it is on this. I don't think this will affect the 2028 elections, but the neocon Zionist argument is dying. It just is. And Trump is dying along with it because he hasn't delivered. It's not good enough to talk. You have to deliver. Dave and Candace are both right about that. He's been won over by the Zionist never-Trumpers, and some people should have seen this earlier. I think I'm seriously not boasting about this at all, but we did see signs of this in his first term, right? When he surrounded himself with people like Pompeo and Bolton, and there was always excuses about doing that. And then, oh, it was actually good he kept Bolton close to him so he could control him. Well, it actually was that Trump was more controlled by Pompeo and Bolton in exacerbating wars in Syria and Yemen, using one of his only vetoes of his first term to extend the war in Yemen when the Congress actually delivered him a bill that would end all U.S. involvement in that. But so we saw that before, and what does he do now? Well, Adelson gives him $100 million. He appoints Marco Rubio as Secretary of State and Mike Waltz, his Homeland Security advisor. Two neocons right there. Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel, neocon. John Ratcliffe, total neocon, to head the FBI. And the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard wasn't enough to displace it. She's either compromised or complicit. She's silent on a lot of these issues with Venezuela. She was very animated against that under Trump's first term, now totally silent about the attempt to regime change Venezuela. That's where we're at. Trump joined the never-Trumpers. He's more on Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin's side, putting Levin on his literal side in the Homeland Security Committee to make these judgments than he is actual people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, who stood with him through his toughest times, including Russiagate. But that's where we're at. Do you agree with Candace Owens and Dave Smith? Is this the downfall of the Zionists in the United States? Are we watching it unfold before our eyes? And what does it mean? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Dave Smith. Awesome conversation. I really appreciated it. If you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below, helping to support the channel. And in return for that, I'll give you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. You'll be able to see those members only videos right away if you do that, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. It'll shoot you to a site. You'll just plug in your email. I'll send that right to you in PDF form. Totally free, no obligation. My gift to you. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.